Welcome back to Eddie's Launchpads.
Stand by for action.
This is your captain speaking. We've been cleared for departure.
Okay, Eddie, start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go. Stand by for action.
This podcast is brought to you by Eddie Edster, the Dogsthorpe Infant School wellbeing dog.
Yes, welcome back to Eddie's Launchpads. Eddie is not with me today. He is not in his co-pilot seat because he's down at school. As you know, he'll come down and see you every week, children, and he's down there right now, down at school, meeting with you all. I'm sure getting up to all of his usual antics, giving you high fives and paw shakes. He loves coming to see you, children, and he loves coming to school. And I hope that you love coming to school as much as Eddie loves coming to school, because it's very, very important. Now, we've got to look after our planet better. All these hot summers are doing our planet no good. All of the storms that are wreaking so much damage. We're running out of water, we're getting bad weather, and our climate is changing because we've not looked after the planet. We have got a bunch of creatures for you to meet today called the Ecodiddles. And to tell us all about it is our friend Cece Seeley. Welcome to the show, Cece. And can you tell us a little bit about the Ecodiddles?
Oh, thank you, Dave. I'd be delighted to tell you about my two friends, Ernest and Hope. Ernest is an Ecodiddle, and nobody's quite sure whether that means he's a bat-like dragon or a dragon-like bat. He's got a furry coat to keep him warm because he lives in an ice cave. But sometimes if it gets too hot, he has scales on his tummy which help him cool down. When he gets too hot, these scales glow bright green. And he can get a bit grumpy and a bit jumpy, and he'll stop at nothing to get cool again. What he does, though, is he likes to just chill out, mind his own business, and live in an ice cave where he can keep cool, drink iced tea, and eat reindeer ice cream, and he doesn't bother anybody. But the problem is that climate change has been actually making things tricky for Ernest, and I'm very glad that I've been able to come on today and tell you the story about Ernest and how his friend Hope, who's an Ecodiddle earth scientist, helps him work out what's happening and solve his Ecodiddle eco-riddle. Like a lot of creatures in cold climates, he sleeps a lot, and he's been asleep a long time, and he's suddenly woken up, and instead of a lovely ice cave, he's in a puddle. His pants are wet and he's not happy, and he's gone outside his cave because it's not an ice cave anymore. It's turned to rock, and he goes outside and all he sees is this enormous mess that his next door neighbour, Bernie the cat, has been making while he's been asleep. And he has to find a new house, and the only cold place he can find is inside Bernie the cat's freezer. Bernie the cat has a big shock when he opens the freezer door and finds Ernest there.
I bet.
The story about Ernest's melting ice cave is in the first book, the storybook, which is a fast-moving rhyme. And it covers the story of how Bernie lives his life and has made the mess and the effect it's had on Ernest, and how Ernest from the freezer starts to take notes about how Bernie is living, and he starts to make the connections about what Bernie's doing and what's happened to his cave. He's keen to try and get it fixed. So in a sister book, he speaks to Hope, the Ecodiddle earth scientist, and she he asks her questions and she gives him the answers of the science about what's happening so that he can understand what's going on. And between them, they work out a plan and they help Bernie fix it, because Bernie's not a bad cat. He wants to do the right thing and he just loves Ernest and Hope, and he does his very best to change the way he lives his life and start looking after the planet instead of making a mess. So that's basically what the book tells us. The story, and in the Ecodiddle, and Solving the Ecodiddle is the sort of factual book behind it, but it's done in a way where Ernest is writing up his notebooks and he's doing his own drawings and he's writing his own things. So it's really easy for people to get into it. It's not like reading a textbook. The actual storybook is can be read to quite young children, actually, and they enjoy the characters. I quite often find if I read the book to younger children and ask them what they think about Bernie, they'll say, "Oh, he's not a bad cat, he's just doing bad things." And I always think they're very, very astute about that. And then as things develop and Ernest plays the trick on Bernie that makes him change his ways, it makes them laugh, and then they can come up with all the ideas as well, and they can see how Bernie is changing, and you can use it to just enjoy a funny story, or you can actually use it to discuss what's going on, and perhaps well, do we do that, or is there something there we could do, or could we think about it? How could we help Bernie? And, there's lots of things. You can play games like how to empty Bernie's skip without actually sending any of it to the tip. And you can also perhaps pretend you're an atom joined together in an ice cube, a little molecule of water in an ice cube, and work out how the heat energy makes you jiggle and dance, and how you can then turn it from ice into water and then into water vapor. And you can do a sort of water cycle game, There's all sorts of ideas for that. So there's lots of things you can do which are just fun and little activities and bits and pieces. And so as a sort of background to that, there's little books where Hope sends Ernest off on a separate adventure to look at a topic each time. So for example, he goes up into outer space and he looks at the world in the first one, and he understands that the shape of the world and the way it moves relative to the sun, and he starts to understand how you get day and night, but he also understands how you get ice, water, land, air, and how it all sort of fits together. So he starts with an overview, and you can do lots of activities with spinning balls and apples and torches, and just do it and have a bit of fun with it so that you can actually see it happening for yourself. And you can pretend to be an astronaut if you like. You can sit there and
I can see this dovetailing quite nicely with STEM, the science and technology and maths. I can see all of that helping, so that it helps children to not only get a love of recycling and to think about the planet and about how we use water and how we've got to stop using as much fossil fuels as we possibly can. All of those things are important messages for children, and the earliest that we can get our children to recognise the challenge, the better for all of us, really.
Oh, definitely. And I think while the first book, there are 2 storybooks and there are sort of 8 learning books behind it. But the second storybook is how, having sorted Bernie out and realising he doesn't want to live forever in Bernie's freezer, Ernest moves to a new place, to a lovely wooded island where there is still an ice cave on top of the hill, and he settles down for a well-earned rest. And in the meantime, there's a heap of bears move in, and they start just felling the trees, and they don't live a very good lifestyle, and it causes havoc on the island. So the other story is all about living sustainably and how you use resources and the effect that you have on others if you are greedy and wasteful. And if you like, the island's a bit like a miniature version of our planet, really. And Ernest, things go so far that Ernest has to eventually be woken up, and he is able to do a little bit of Ecodiddle magic and give the bears a second chance, so they can work it out, and they work out how they can live better. And that's, if you like, the two stories run side by side. One is thinking about climate change and the things that we can do for that. And the second one is about how we can live sustainably and make the best use of the resources we have. So the Ecodiddles have a little code, and if you follow it, you won't go far wrong. So for younger children, it's like traffic lights. It's don't be greedy and wasteful. Think how you affect others, and always help nature and the environment. So it's 3 steps. And for older children, it divides those into sort of 7 steps, a bit more. And then if you are doing eco schools stuff, you've probably already got your own eco code as well, so you can start thinking about how your own eco codes work with Ecodiddle eco codes, and how you've approached the subject as well. So there's quite a lot of room for being flexible and building in what works in your own locality. The 2 storybooks are basically picture books with a fast-moving poem. And but they're divided into chapters, so you can take a chapter at a time. If for younger children, to do the whole book might be a lot, but you could maybe say in a school you could certainly maybe do it over a couple of days and talk about the themes that each chapter has. Or you could just run through it quickly as a fast moving rhyme, and you get to the end. It takes about 10 minutes to read through the books. The learning books behind that are very definitely illustrated. I have done it so that there's a page where on the right hand side you have Ernest's notebook, which gives you the basic facts. And if you've got young children, they may not want to get involved with the reading of it so much. So the left hand page is a cartoon style, and it sort of takes you through an activity. But if you've got older children, it's designed so if you've got children who enjoy reading, they'll read the right hand page and they'll read the left hand page. If you've got someone who's not so keen on that, they'll read the cartoon page, they'll get the gist of it, and they'll be able to do the activity. And it's been designed so you don't need any special equipment. If you've only got a football and not a globe, it doesn't matter. As long as you've got something that's a sphere, you can do it with things that are readily available around you. So it doesn't cost any extra to do. And it doesn't involve, for example, if you're looking at hotter things, found ways of doing it so you're not using too much anything. A child could do it on their own if they wanted to, but easy to do in a classroom too. We pulled the story together into a short play. So if you are doing it, say, over term time, or indeed if your children are really into it and they're doing it as just for the family or whatever, you can actually turn the story into a very easy little play. You can have fun making your costumes and your props by upcycling and recycling things that you've got to hand. There's nothing sort of too high tech about it. And if anybody wants to add in the songs and the dances that go with it, it's all there. So you can just do it, and it's done karaoke style. So you can learn the songs just from the screen. The background music plays with it. You learn it. So you don't have to be musically inclined to be able to actually just put on the show. So I think it's sometimes if you've done it as a term time project, it's nice to work towards something at the end.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's nice is you can do it for parents as a school show, or one class can do it and use it as a way to teach other classes.
Absolutely.
Or younger children, or whatever sort of collaborative learning opportunities there as well. And you have a lot of fun just doing it.
Yeah.
And the whole point is that you can adapt it. So if you've got your own jokes that you want to write into it, you can take it as a basic thing and then craft it into something that will work for your group of children as well, or the children themselves will probably do an even better job, I think.
Now, one thing that comes over from as you've been saying all what you offer is you've clearly got a love for this particular subject. Is it something that's come, later in your career and in your writing career, or have you got experience, or is there a particular past experience that makes you have this love of looking after the climate?
Oh, I think I've had it since I was born. I'm actually was born in Essex in the 1960s, and I grew up in a farming community. So I grew up with nature all around me, and I watched over the 60s and 70s as the hedges came up and the crops that were grew were changed, and plastics had just started to come in.
Yeah.
And I've just, over the whole time of that I've been working, and I spent a lot of time working in the outdoors. I trained as a forester. The wonderful thing about being a forester is that your training is really good for doing things with children later on in life, because you learn all the basic science like botany, zoology, geology, soil science, meteorology. You get a very good broad education about the science and how everything works and interconnects. But you also understand that you're growing something which is a renewable resource, but on a finite resource, because land is finite and we all need it for different things. So it's about understanding the balance of people have modern lifestyles and they don't really want to change from that. They need to find new ways and better ways of doing it. And I think it's about trying to find a balance, and clearly our balance is way wrong. I think it'll be the children that of today are going to be the ones that have to understand it and be empowered to find solutions that work. Climate's everywhere. Climate change is everywhere, and lifestyle. Sadly, even if everybody did it now, it's a bit like trying to break a speeding juggernaut. It's going to continue to warm until you can actually get Earth's cozy blanket, thinned back down again. Even when you've done that, it's going to take it would take a very long time for things to get colder. I don't know whether it'll ever be able to be reversed, but I think that we need to think about, in terms of agriculture, for example, we need, or even just in our vegetable gardens, we can't just go and water things. You have to pick plants that are going to be able to withstand drier conditions or warmer conditions. And in terms of the forests, we maybe have to think about perhaps the surface rooting trees that we've been planting, which have been brilliant for timber production, might not be the best thing if we're going to have a lot more stormy conditions. And
absolutely,
maybe need to think about. So I think the way to do it is to understand the basics.
If people want to get hold of your books and your material, where's the best place for them to come?
Well, if they just go to the website, it'll link them through and they can buy them that way. I do sometimes go out and do workshops and visit schools, but it just depends. I might be in your area in the autumn. So if I was, I could make contact again and see if anybody was interested.
Are the books only on your website, or are they available in bookshop?
It links through to Amazon.
That's wonderful. Right, okay, folks. Well, listen, don't worry about finding out about the website, because as always, go straight onto the text of this podcast and you're just one click away from Cece's amazing resources. Go and check out the Ecodiddles. You're going to learn something, children, whether that just be a very simple story about a very funny creature, or whether you're older and you want to learn some more about this wonderful planet that we're living on and how we need to take care of it more. Here is somewhere that you can get hold of. You're just one click away. Just one click away. How quickly can you do it? have a look at this and visit the website. For those of you who are driving to work, so I know you drive to work listening to this or drive home listening to this, if you've not got that sort of access, what actually is the website address?
It's just www.ecodiddle.com.
And so another great Launchpad show comes to an end. But don't worry, Eddie and Captain Dave will be back next week for another exciting trip on their learning journey. Until next time, be kind, be respectful, and don't forget to dream, believe, and shine.